Let's talk about viewport navigation and how we can move around our 3D model in Rhino. A typical way of moving around a 3D model is wanting to zoom in and out, which is similar to any 3D modeling software. If we go to our perspective viewport and use the scroll button on our mouse, we can easily zoom in and out of our 3D model. We can also do this in all other viewports. There's also a way to zoom with more control. If you hold down the control key in your keyboard and the right hand button on your mouse, you can move the mouse up and down in your viewport to zoom in and out with greater control. You can also do this in other viewports. Another typical navigation tool is called panning. Let's go to our top viewport and hold down the right hand mouse button. A hand icon will appear, which is the panning icon. You can move the mouse to pan around our object. We can also do this in front view and in right view. When combining zooming in and out, we can get a lot of control over our viewport navigation. When you go to perspective mode and try to pan, you'll notice our model rotates instead. Our top, front, and right views are orthographic 2D views, so you can't actually rotate in 2D. When you're in a 3D viewport, the panning control changes. To pan in a 3D viewport, hold down the Shift key and the right-hand mouse and drag. You can combine panning and rotating in 3D to get greater control over your view. Next, let's talk about selecting objects. We can select objects in our Rhino viewport by clicking on them with our left-hand mouse button. Our selected objects will turn a light yellow color. We can deselect any object by clicking off in space. If we select the object again, we can also deselect by hitting the escape key. You'll notice when we select an object, it lights up in all viewports, which is really helpful for us to locate our geometry when we have a more complex model. Another way to select objects is with the marquee selection tool. Let's go to our perspective view, and if we hold down the left-hand mouse button and click in space and drag from left to right, we can draw a rectangular selection window. If the window covers an entire object, the object will be selected. Multiple objects can be selected like this. If we create a window that doesn't cover the entire object, it won't be selected. If you're creating a marquee tool from left to right, you need to cover the objects you want to select. There's a second selection marquee method that works from right to left. A right to left marquee will have a dashed line. This indicates that anything the inside marquee touches will be selected, which gives you greater control over your selection. So to recap, a left to right marquee needs to cover the entire object or it won't be selected. A right to left marquee just needs to include a small amount of the object and it'll be selected. These selection tools work in all viewports. Typically when we're modeling, we want to work in one viewport full screen. If we navigate to the perspective viewport and double click on the perspective name, the viewport will become full screen. We can double click on the perspective name again to go back to our split view. This works for all other viewports by double clicking on their names.